Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today I thought we would talk about how we can train like an athlete, and more specifically exploring how training like an athlete could help us restore our relationship with exercise and with our own body. For those of you who are new here, my name is Tilly and I'm a strength and conditioning coach, and today we're joined by
me, Callum.
Callum is an internationally capped rugby player, and he is also a strength and conditioning coach and a semi-professional athlete.
Yeah.
So first, I thought we would define what it means to train like an athlete. So simply put, from my perspective, it is a performance-based mindset that we have to adopt, because training like an athlete is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle-based approach. Elite athletes are driven by their need to perform well. Otherwise, they may or may not be able to maintain their position on a team. They might not keep their jobs. But in order to do this, coaches and athletes are reevaluating what works best, and they're applying the changes that they need to make in very objective and neutral ways. So training like an athlete is incredibly process focused. While elite athletes like Callum might be working really hard to perform well in their sport or in a particular match, for instance, as you're listening to this, I want you to think of yourself as performing the best you can for life. Or if you're an athlete like Callum, then you can apply this to your sport too. But for most of us, we're training for life. That's our goal, to perform better and be our best selves. And while we're doing that, we're gonna try and implement all of the same strategies, regimes, and training principles that elite athletes use. But critically, this process of training like an athlete has to be sustainable. Otherwise, it's not gonna allow us to be consistent, and we're not gonna be able to progress in the ways that we want. And ultimately, without consistency, we're not gonna be able to perform well.
Yeah, definitely. Ideally, everything that you do becomes focused around your performance, and the routines, rituals, and practices that you build around that become a habit eventually. So it's not necessarily about reaching a certain goal itself, but about building those habits and those processes over time. You want these to eventually be lifestyle changes that you're able to manage year-round, so that you can focus on the performance for your sport or for life as well.
One way that we can implement training like an athlete into our own life is by setting goals. And this helps you to focus your training on something that you want to achieve. It's okay to have a number or an outcome in mind, but in order to more sustainably achieve the goal, and like Callum said, have it be a lifestyle approach, I think it's better if we try and move towards process goals. So process means that we're focusing on the journey, not just the outcome. It's not a win or lose and suddenly that's it, and it's not a fail or succeed and then
you're done.
There's a gray area there, and it's more nuanced. It could look like when you're in an elite, like athletic environment, that it is very black and white, but it's not. And it's not because win or lose isn't the end of the discussion. Losses teach us about ourselves, and they provide us information to help us adjust what we're doing. Like I said earlier, it's about evaluating what works and what doesn't. And then with that information, we can reorient ourselves into the direction that we actually want to go.
The main issue with outcome goals is that there's far too many variables and you don't necessarily have control over every single one. So with process goals, you have far more control because it's more about your day-to-day. Like if on game day you turn up sick or your head's not really in it, you're naturally going to have a bit of a more of a worse performance than you would if you had come up feeling 100%, and those things aren't necessarily in your control.
Or even another way of looking at that is if the other team just showed up as the best version of themselves. Whereas on the other hand,
so process goals, you have far more control and will help you in achieving that outcome goal that you've set.
So if you have a goal in mind, maybe it's having more energy throughout the day, maybe it's performing better in a tennis match, or maybe it's getting into your international team to represent your country. Process goals allow us to build the habits that will help us move in that direction. A method of seeing whether or not you're on track to meet those goals is by monitoring yourself. So this could be keeping track of things like your energy levels, your mood, your sleep, your nutrition. Monitoring yourself could look like keeping a track of how you feel, or what you feel affects your performance. But what's really important as we start this process of monitoring ourselves is that we do this from an objective and from a neutral standpoint. We are acting as a witness to ourselves. So we're not shaming ourselves for feeling bad and not performing well one day. We're just observing patterns. And this allows us to be more resilient and prepared for variance, because naturally variance occurs. Some days you might feel bad and other days you might feel good. That doesn't instantly mean that something is wrong and needs to be changed immediately.
So what that might look like in an athletic environment would be something as simple as an RPE calculation at the end of a session. So rating on a scale from 1 to 10 how hard you think that was, with 10 being the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. And if it wasn't a session that was designed to be that way, then maybe there's like an underlying issue of some sort. There are also health monitoring things that some teams use at the start of the week that measure how you sleep, how's your overall energy and everything going.
What's crucial is that you're not picking up one day where you know you slept badly and then adjusting your whole entire week based on that one day. What we're looking for is if there's a period of a week or a month where you're continuously rating a 10 on the RPE scale for your workouts, then that's where we know we need to make a change. It's like something is not right. But if we're not objective enough and we're not differentiated enough to separate ourselves from what's going on, then sometimes a bad day can completely throw us for a spin and we're like, ugh, nothing ever works for me, blah, blah, blah. But if we are able to act as an observer and just witness ourselves with curiosity, then we can pay attention to those repeated feelings. We can pay attention to repeated thoughts and habits that might be affecting us and how we perform for life or for our sport. That's when we can make the decision to change our training based on what's actually happening. If I am consistently struggling to reach a certain amount of workouts in a week, then it might be time to do what great athletes and what good strength and conditioning coaches will encourage you to do, and that is to take rest. If you're skipping workouts, you're not performing your best, or you're consistently struggling to meet your training demands, or you're struggling because of life and work commitments, then it is time to reevaluate what's going on and be honest with yourself about what's happening, but without the shame or the judgment. Training like an athlete is about being efficient and training hard when it matters, but it is also about zooming out and looking at the bigger picture. If you get injured, sick, or you're run down because you're pushing yourself really, really hard in a certain area of your life or in a certain training session just because you should be able to perform, or you did it yesterday, why can't you do it today? Because that pressure takes a toll. How are you going to perform for your life? You're not. This is not me saying that you should skip training whenever you feel like it, because I really think that exercise or movement of any kind can have mass amounts of benefits for us, our mind, our body, and our soul. But I do think that if you need to, and only you will know whether you need to or not, then you should give yourself permission to rest. Because in the long run, one missed session isn't going to make or break anything. We're looking for 1% improvements each week. We're looking for a lifestyle that you can actively show up for. Training like an athlete is about looking for a lifestyle that helps you perform your best. That is what we are aiming for. If you're scared to take a rest, or you're not really sure the reason why you might be taking a rest, then something that might help with building trust in yourself and building consistency is making small promises to yourself. That might look like, for example, when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to take 3 deep breaths. Or when I have my morning coffee, I'm going to drink a glass of water with that. Showing up for yourself every day in one of those small ways and choosing to do something that actively helps you move towards your goal of performing better for life or for your sport. That's a way of building trust and confidence in your abilities, and it's showing you that you're worth showing up for. And I do believe that practices like this move us towards the perspective of an elite athlete. Athletes like Callum know they're going to show up for themselves because they do it every single day. They know that if they miss a session or practice one day, that's not going to completely derail them because they've built the confidence in themselves over a lifetime of implementing those small promises and building habits, and that eventually helps them to build bigger ones and aim for bigger things or make bigger promises to themselves. But it doesn't have to start out as this huge commitment or huge lifestyle change, because that isn't sustainable. And if we kind of shift back into hearing from an actual athlete, and maybe Callum can shine some light on this all can really be summarized by the fact that more is not necessarily always more.
Yeah, I think an example that highlights this is when you get injured. There's never really any sense in training through an injury because everything is focused on the performance, so you really have to ask yourself, will doing this session as it is in your current state benefit you? As Till said, this isn't a free pass to skip sessions whenever you don't really feel like going. You still need that work ethic or commitment to yourself in order to do what you can to better yourself. So again, instead of training through the injury, like going for a run when you've got a sore lower body, you should consider the alternatives, like off-feet conditioning, for example. Can I get my cardio done on a bike, on a rower, on a ski erg. Or maybe your body's even just simply telling you that you need to rest, and that's perfectly fine as well.
When we look at the information, like how we've been coping with training or how we feel before and after, if we're feeling like crap, something needs to change. But we need to be a safe enough place for ourselves to make these adjustments because we're going to perform better, and that's what we're aiming for. We're not making these adjustments because we're trying to shame ourselves, and being able to be an observer and act curiously towards yourself and witness your thoughts and patterns and behaviors are not only helpful for building a sustainable lifestyle, but they're also really helpful at connecting you to the truest version of yourself. You become more aware of how your body reacts, what makes it react a certain way, and how that makes you feel. And this deep knowledge of yourself is an invaluable tool inside and outside of an exercise or training environment. And the same thing applies to food. If you feel that eating chocolate before you go to a gym helps you feel more energized, then where does that shame sneak in?
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of my little chalky box around training. Pretty much never a training without it.
So there's no room for shaming yourself. Taking the chocolate box to training is honestly a great example of how there's not really room for restriction in this approach. Because potentially, if performing for life is your goal, this could last your whole life. And I am not going to tell you to live a life without chocolate. But what this approach is about is assessing how the choices you make you feel and how they make you perform. Developing this connectedness to yourself and then being able to communicate your needs to the people around you and then to act on what your body needs and what feels best for it in the moment. That is a vital part of elite athletic performance that I think often gets lost, and I think that many people take it for granted. But this is not a new concept. International athletes and Olympic level athletes really do perceive psychological skills and deep interpersonal relationships with themselves and others to be a vital part of their success. So maybe it's time for the rest of us to do the same.
So sport is so much more than just what your body can do. There's a huge mental side to it as well. Little techniques during your performance, such as breathing, self-talk, and like physical sensations can really help you. They can really help improve your performance massively by bringing the mental side back into the game or back into your performance. But absolutely none of this would work if you weren't in tune with your body.
And I know we've been speaking a lot, or mostly me, but it's really important that we don't overcomplicate this process. People are going to sell you workouts online and tell you this is what athletes do and this is how they prepare and these are the supplements that they take, but it's not. Elite athletes don't do anything fancy, or at least they're not doing what all the influencers are saying they're doing. They're doing simple things well, and that's it. They're showing up to training, they're eating to fuel themselves, they're focusing on what makes them feel good, avoiding things that make them feel bad, they're drinking enough water and getting enough sleep. Elite athletes are absolutely doing more training than you and me, but they're still training following all of the basic principles of strength and conditioning. There's no gimmicks, there's no fads, it's just consistency and showing up for yourself, showing that you are worthy of showing up for. They're taking each day as it comes and they're trying their best. That's what we have to do too when we're trying to perform our best for the life that we want to live. So the key takeaways from everything that we've said today: number 1, set yourself goals. Number 2, monitor your progress towards those goals. Number 3, witness yourself. Be an observer in your reactions, how you feel, what makes you feel good, what makes you feel bad. And it's crucial, again, that we act out of curiosity and not shame through this step. Number 4 is to adjust what you're doing as needed. It's not a win or fail. There's gonna be times in your life where you can't show up as consistently as you would like, and it's about making choices that are helping you in the long run, zooming out to that bigger picture. I hope something we've said today has resonated with you. Let us know your thoughts down below. We put out new videos every Wednesday and Saturday, and I will see you guys next time. Say thank you to my very special athlete.
Bye.
Bye, guys.